Hey guys, Bugcat7 here. Okay, it is Friday, July 4th, 2025, and I'd like to thank you for visiting the Stonewall Research 2 channel here on YouTube. I really do appreciate it. Okay, guys, bricka bracka firecracker sis boom ba, Bugs Bunny, rah rah rah. Okay, everybody having a great Independence Day here in the United States. I hope so. I hope you get together with family and have a fun time. Although I could really do without the fireworks. You know, once you've seen one fireworks show, you've seen them all, and all it does is scare all the animals, which I don't really like. And beside the fact that, do you really have independence? You know, yeah, we have independence, we got freedom, and we got this, and we got that. Oh, really? Right? From King George. Remember King George? Yeah, he's a bad guy. You know, onerous taxes and, rule by decree and all this kind of stuff. And you couldn't criticize the king and everything without, having your tongue cut out and everything else. So, have we gone beyond that? Mm, I don't think so. Let's see, onerous taxes, got that, and rule by decree, something like that too. And hey, look, I'm you know I, I'm happy to put Joe Biden up here too because he's just as culpable in this as anybody. You know, I don't care about one party or the other, and I don't care about politics at all. But do you really have independence? Like Goethe said, none are so hopelessly enslaved that those who falsely believe they are free. That was Goethe, the German philosopher Goethe. So, um, I don't think so. Any case, we are going to talk about in this video about the Roman forums. And I think you're going to find this article that I'm going to read to you, which is really a travel article, which I like because they sort of summarize all the points of these, areas that we're talking about here in Rome that are served as these forums. But it's based on this notion that these societies did not function without these trading areas, and that this was an essential part of the civilizations of the past and the ancient past, as you see demonstrated in Rome, as this article that I'm going to read to you suggests. But the researchers are going to say, well, they didn't have any money back then, so no coined money, thousands of years ago, in the European areas or places that weren't quite as civilized as Rome and everything. Well, maybe, but hey, they had these things called tally sticks, right? That's money, and as a matter of fact, a basis for money. So how far back do these tally sticks really go? I mean, they found so many of them in Britain, and it seems to where a preponderance of these things are. But have they dug up every square area? A lot of these things were wooden. How many survived? A lot, probably not. But what about the giant stone coins from Micronesia? Hey, look at this one here. Uh, you want your change, sir? Yeah, let me get the backhoe in here to lift it up. So, here's the stone money from Micronesia, which I've talked about on my other channel, about who is slinging around this money, which is what it is. Okay? The bigger the stone, the more it's right. Of course, the amount of labor put into, making one of these stones. And transporting it from here to there or whatever. A lot of these stones, these Holly stones, have never been moved from the spot they were left in, I guess, from the ancient past. But did these ancient civilizations have money? Well, sure. Sure they did. And trade and commerce. And these were the main things, all right, to go back to the Squire and Davis illustrations of all these Dana mound areas and, what these areas were primarily used for, in my opinion, is, trade and commerce. And, I went over this on my other channel and this channel as well about these hill forts when you read the articles, and I've read the articles here on my channel from mainstream academia, that they're not really forts, same as the Adena. And then you see in this one here, let's see where it is, says uh, fortified hill is what this says right here. So whereas the Squire and Davis had this sort of adolescent mentality, which I believe is extended through into scientists today. These are the people who you went to school with, that wear the flood pants and have the pocket protectors, are the brainiacs and the best students in school. Of course, I was one of the best students in school, but I was a cool guy. I played sports, I hung out and all kind of stuff like that. Not like these other nerdy kids, but that was what what was a conundrum about me as a student was that I covered all the bases. But in any case, they believe that these things were originally forts, right? Because that's what their adolescent minds tell them, from knee jerk sort of perception of these things. But upon later examination, they didn't think they're forts at all because of the security levels and how these things are built, just like these Welsh hill forts. Okay, and here's a picture of how one of these hill forts is designed, right? So you see this here. Okay, so how much security is this really going to provide? I mean, I could run right up this here. Of course, you have the advantage, you're above me or whatever, but how easy for me as a good fighter to just throw you down onto the hillside there, and now you're lower than me. That's not a good strategy or whatever, but as something that has minimum security, okay, which is all these trading areas would ever need, with sort of basic, you know, guardians around to enforce, order, whatever it might be there. Okay, but we know they're trading areas from these articles. So, here is, a picture of some of the earthworks from these Welsh hill forts. Okay, and here is a picture of how these are built. These earthworks are built in the Newark earthworks. Okay, you see some similarities here about how these things are built. Okay, there's like, you know, extremely similar type constructions going on here, and the various types. Okay, here you go. Okay, you got that right there. Here's the Newark earthworks. A picture of some portion of them and how they're built. And here's a Welsh hill fort. Okay, quote unquote hill fort. So don't think they're hill forts at all. Now they know that they're not hill forts, and so similarly, these are not hill forts either. They're trading areas. This is what people were primarily concerned with in the past. Not all this hairy fairy, hippy dippy, spiritual, you know, uh, astronomical, obsession and all kind. Sure, there were people in these tribes and the tribes of Europe, I'm sure, with the Bell Beaker people, certainly, right? With their earthworks and everything else like that. I mean, even Stonehenge, by the way. Okay, I guess are we talking about the pareidolia again with Stonehenge? Here's a henge right here. See the way the henge is built here? Okay, all these circular areas with these earthworks around them that have similar features, et cetera, et cetera. Who's to say that this is not a trading area? But the pareidolia that's telling mainstream academics and those quote unquote alternative in like megalithomania, they're all for that stuff. They love that stuff. They go hook, line, and sinker for anything other than some sort of mundane practical use or something like that. Why? Why? See, that's why I don't have a lot of subscribers because it's gotta be that. It's gotta, no matter what circle you take and line up in the sky, well, you can line it up with anything. It's 360 degrees, right? So, whatever thing might be there indicating it, pointing to something or rather, that's easy to see because it fits that pattern. And you already have a preconceived notion of what it is because you've been told what it is 100 times already. It's some kind of astronomical clock and all this kind of other mystery and all this intrigue about these places and everything that they attribute to. There's no evidence for that at all. It's complete fantasy stories that these people make up, either professional academics or alternative people and everything, because it makes for good storytelling. That's about it. But some mundane use like some sort of trading area, whatever it is, well, just forget it. That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. We already found out about all these things being trading areas. If you type in ancient trading areas into a search, I'm going to tell you all these places around the whole planet where these places were hubs for trading and all kinds of commerce and business, and metropolitan and people coming from faraway places and sharing ideas and all kind of stuff. And that's basically what the Roman forums are about. Okay, they're like updated sort of versions of these trading areas, in similar ways. Here you have some of these Roman forums are attributed to such and such an emperor or whatever it is. Okay, so you have people coming from long distances, okay, with high end merchandise, let's say, for those befitting for, royalty like emperors and their families and the nobility and the well off people in the Roman society, whatever. So you have these people bringing in high end goods and, I'm sure different levels of goods, but these people bringing in high end goods, or who are they selling it to? Well, it's the emperor and his cohorts, probably, and they have to provide secure areas. What are they going to do? Just check in some warehouse somewhere and leave all their goods there or their raw materials there in some warehousemen somewhere in Rome there. They don't know the language really. They're gonna have to, you know, contract with somebody to leave their stuff there, and who's guarding it? Do they guarantee security? All this kind of stuff. So why would that be? So look, the emperor himself is going to provide a place for you to stay and keep your stuff at, well within the confines of his control. Okay, and the people who are watching the place are the policemen of the times, Roman guards, et cetera, are keeping order in there. Otherwise, there'd be chaos, right? So this is the way it worked in these areas as well. Wherever you find this, okay, you see abstracts of these hill forts too. They're built similarly in designs, their security designs and everything. One entrance in, and one, certain entrances lead to certain areas, and they're all going to be overseen by whoever was serving as the guards and watchmen there. They're on these high areas and stuff. Is it's not to make it easy for somebody to get in and out. Certainly, something like this is on one side it's pretty easy, but these other sides you can't get at. Similar to how these earthworks were designed, or bluffs and everything else. So taking advantage of the terrain for security architecture, but security architecture is built into every one of these things too, just like this, but it's medium security, minimal security. It's not high security like a castle, you know, a Torreon or something like that, where it's impenetrable. The only way to get in is to put a ladder, scale a wall, bust through the gates or whatever it is. It's not like that. But certainly these people are capable of creating a high security areas if they're doing all this kind of work. So let's read this travel article about the Roman forums, and basically, like I said, these places for the people to bring their goods and everything. But it's even more than that. It's just trading areas where certain kind of activities were going on, and you could almost relate it to how it was going on in the past. There were probably areas slated for these specific items and things and raw materials, with people coming in from out of town, traveling long distances to bring all kinds of goods and materials and everything else. And then the local people there, being entrepreneurial, whatever, are going to have these booths and everything along the way and whatnot, because we're going to read about it here in this article right here about how the Roman forums were. Some interesting, very interesting aspects to some of these things. So, the more than the Roman forum, here are 10 ancient forums of ancient Rome. Okay, so just some summary here. The Roman Forum was the most important forum in ancient Rome, featuring impressive monuments and ruins. Other Roman fora, such as the Forum of Caesar and the Forum of Augustus, also played significant roles in daily life. These played significant roles in daily life, I'm sure, of the upper class there in Rome, because as I said, these high end items are going to go to a place where they can be secure and be protected. Each forum had its own purpose and uses such as marketplace, worship, legal proceedings, and commemoration. The Roman Forum was once the bustling heart of Rome, where commerce and politics were carried out. But there were many other forums or fora in Rome. There were four imperial fora: the Forum of Caesar, the Forum of Augustus, the Forum of Trajan, the Forum of Nerva, plus the all important Roman Forum. There were also a number of other Roman fora in the city. Many of the fora were marketplaces and part of everyday life, so they can help visitors understand what daily life was like in ancient Rome. Here are 10 of the Roman fora of ancient Rome. Okay, so what it was like in ancient Rome, certainly there were, much simpler vendors that were permanent people, local people who lived there, who were vending and all kind of stuff, I'm sure, and catering to all these out of town people coming in. This is a very complex and developed civilization. So, you know, I'm certain that, the high end dealers and everything were well within the walls of these Caesars, because that's where they needed to be. Because who are they trading with and dealing with? You know, the nobility and upper classes. And, everything else is outside the walls, which is, that's fine. It's just, maybe more like, general goods and crafts and things that people made money. I'm sure that was going on too. And you'll see how this goes anyway. So number 10, the Roman Forum. The Roman Forum, or Forum Romanum, was the most important Roman forum, and it's a top tourist destination in Rome today. See many impressive Roman monuments and ruins, including triumphal arches, temples, and the Temple of Vesta, and much more. It is located near the Colosseum. Uses: marketplace, triumphal processions, elections, public speeches, politics. So you can see all the things that are going on in these Roman forums, where not only was it an exchange of goods going on and money and commerce of every type and everything, but exchanging of ideas that from these far off lands where some of these goods came from and whatnot, all learning about other cultures and everything. Certainly, the Romans were quite interested in that stuff, despite them conquering a lot of these people. They were still interested in their lives there and what they're doing there because they had, wanted to learn about things because that's what they were into, learning. Forum of Caesar, number 9, Forum of Caesar. The Forum of Caesar, or Forum Aululium, was built by, I instead of J, was built by, I'm sure it's Julian, but was built by Julius Caesar near the Roman Forum in 46 BC. And it looks to me like this is, some conquest of the emperor and his arch, triumphal arch here and this huge area in here, which is gonna host a lot of different vendors. Okay, so all this marketplace stuff was going on there. Well, more than just a marketplace, people coming in from areas far and wide to come to Rome here. Well, they're selling high end goods to make a beeline for these forums. He, the forum built by Julius Caesar near the Roman Forum in 46. He purchased a very expensive piece of land, recorded to be 100 million sesterces. It measured 160 by 75 meters. It was completed in 46 BC when it was dedicated to Caesar. Uses: public senate, business, other uses. I'm sure plenty of marketplace uses too. Hosting, high end traders. Number 8, Forum of Augustus. The Forum of Augustus, or Forum Augustum in Latin, was built by Emperor Augustus between 27 BC and AD 14. One of its notable structures is the Temple of Mars Ultor, which was the fulfillment of a vow made by Augustus to build the temple to Mars, the Roman god of war, during the Battle of Philippi against the assassins of Caesar. The Forum of Augustus has a number of ruins and is worth visiting in Rome today. What do you do there? Worship on Mars, legal proceedings, other uses. And all these other uses are trading uses, I am sure. I'm sure these people wanted those particular traders with high end items close by. Number 7, Forum of Trajan. Trajan's Forum, Forum Traiani in Latin, was the last of the imperial fora built in ancient Rome. It was built with the spoils of war following Trajan's conquest of Dacia, modern Romania. It was built between 105 and 107, and one of its most significant monuments is Trajan's Column, one of the four triumphal columns remaining from ancient Rome. Its use: commemoration of Trajan and other use. 6, Forum of Nerva. This is an interesting one. The Forum of Nerva, also called the Forum Transitorium, was also one of the imperial fora of Rome. The ruins of the Temple of Minerva are found there. It was demolished by Pope Paul V in the 16th century. Little is known of this ancient forum, but it was the smallest of the imperial fora, built by Emperor Domitian in 85 AD and completed by his successor, Emperor Nerva, in 97 AD. It was a narrow forum. And from what I understand, it connected. See, it says markets and thoroughfare to larger forums. So in this narrow forum were probably all these niche vendors in there along the way who come from near and far with their goods and finished items, etc. Jewelry dealers of every sort, of every variety. All this stuff was going on there and catering to the upper classes in Rome, of which there were quite a few, especially among the government, with the Senate and everything. But there were all these sort of independent entrepreneurs that had plenty of gold. Okay, Forum Boreum. Now we get to the different kinds of forums here that have everything to do with trade and commerce. The Forum Boreum, or Cattle Forum, was dedicated to the commerce of cattle. It is located between the Palatine Hill and the River Tiber. One of the top attractions here today is the Temple of Hercules Victor. The Temple of Hercules Victor is the oldest temple and building in Rome still standing today. Use cattle or meat market. So this one was strictly a meat market, and that had to be done. You had, a rather large population. Well, how's that going to occur? Okay, so here is where, you know, slaughter is going to occur, the butchery is going to occur, where these meats are sold, or, side of beef, or however, dimension you're going to be buying this stuff. Okay, but this forum is dedicated solely to the commerce of cattle. Forum Halatorium. The Forum of Halatorium translates as the Market of the Vegetable Sellers and is located on the slopes of Capitoline Hill and the old Servian walls. It is located to the Forum it is located adjacent to the Forum Boreum near the Carmental Gate. At its northern and were the temples of Bellona, the Roman goddess of war, and Apollo Medicus. Use herbs and vegetables market. So here's an herbs and vegetable forum where these people are going to interact and all this kind of stuff. So obviously people needed to eat. Well, these are the areas where you're going to bring your goods to be sold and from that point on distributed to the various places, restaurants, private individuals, markets, whatever it is, market sellers, other market sellers. So, and sellers in there. So these people are bringing their products here from their farms, probably locally and probably from great distances as well, with things that can stand a long distance trip. Stuff that can be dried and preserved and all kind of stuff. So I'm sure that was going on as well, especially with herbs and vegetables. There's a lot of that could be done that way. Number three, Forum Piscarium. The Forum Piscarium was the ancient fish market of Rome. It is located to the north of the Roman Forum, between the Tiber and Capitoline Hill. It was destroyed in a fire in 210 BC, but was quickly rebuilt. It is in the area of the current Roman ghetto, or historic medieval Jewish ghetto in Rome. Use fish market. Okay, so here it is in the Jewish ghetto of Rome, the fish market. Okay, with the Jews were dealers of fish. Very lucrative industry there. People love to eat fish, so why not? Number two, Forum Suarium. The Forum Suarium was the pork marketplace in ancient Rome. It is mentioned in two inscriptions that date from around AD 200. It was located near a military barracks near the present Via di Propaganda. Oh, so then it must have been a fort, right? Because it's near military barracks, right? So it must have been a fort. No, a pork marketplace. The barracks were for the cohorts urbanae, or urban force Augustus formed to counterbalance the massive power of the Praetorian Guard in Rome. Use pork market. One, and hey, maybe the most important one, especially to tourists and all kind of stuff like that, maybe. Forum Venarium. The Forum Venarium was the ancient wine forum of early ancient Rome. It was located between the Aventine Hill and the Tiber River. Inscriptions found on the walls of Rome suggest some connection between the Forum Venarium and a group of moneylenders. Hmm, interesting. Wine market. Okay, so there's all the forums of Rome, and you know, looks like more than half of them are where food items and food goods are sold, and probably the rest of them had to do with, you know, commercial items of some sort, crafts, arts and crafts, jewelry, weapons, maybe, art of some variety, small statues, because they find all those things in in archaeological days. So who was making them in the past? I'm sure any number of people. Of course, that was something you could make money on. But here's what these forums are primarily used for: trade, commerce, and trade. Okay, this is what these people. Sure, they had temples in them and all kind of stuff where these people could go and worship and all kind of stuff. Well, how long that's going to take? Few minutes, a half hour, whatever it is, then the rest of the day is spent with commerce and trade. That was what it was primarily built for. The temples there were additions, afterthoughts. Okay? So, yeah, one thing is for one purpose and the other thing is for another purpose, but it's incorporated within the framework of the thing of its primary purpose, which is a marketplace. Okay, they were all marketplaces or trading areas. Okay, just like these are trading areas and they're not forts. And they're not. Well, these are places where they're doing astronomical alignments and stuff like that. They're similar in respect to what type of structures they are. All similar, but these ones built on natural occurring um, geology and geography there.